The champagne glass in my hand was sweating. I watched the condensation drip onto my worn dress shoes while my daughter Emily stood 20 feet away, laughing at something her fiancé's mother just said. The wedding venue, some overpriced barn they'd converted into a reception hall, smelled like fresh paint and desperation. I'd driven 4 hours to get here, took the day off work at the hardware store where I'd been assistant manager for the past 12 years. My wife Sarah died 3 years ago, and Emily was all I had left. She knew that. Everyone knew that. "Dad, you made it." Emily walked over, her smile tight, the kind of smile you give a neighbor whose dog won't stop barking. "I wasn't sure you'd show." "Wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart." She glanced at my jacket. "Is that what you're wearing to the ceremony?" I looked down at my navy blazer, the one Sarah had bought me for our anniversary 8 years ago. "Something wrong with it?" "It's just—" "Never mind." She touched my arm briefly, then pulled away like I had something contagious. "Listen, I need to talk to you about something." That's when I noticed him, standing behind her, all 6'3" of him, in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Blake Thompson, future son-in-law, investment banker, the kind of guy who smiled with his teeth but never his eyes. "Mr. Patterson." He extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, practiced, the handshake of a man who'd read books about handshakes. "Blake, we're so glad you could make it." He put his arm around Emily's waist, possessive. "Emily talks about you all the time." She did. I could tell by the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Dad, we need your apartment keys." Emily's voice had that edge to it, the one she'd developed after college, after she'd moved to the city and started making real money at her consulting firm. I blinked. "What?" "Your apartment keys. We need them." "Why would you need my apartment keys?" Blake stepped forward. "It's a bit complicated, but the short version is, we're selling it." The champagne glass felt suddenly very cold in my hand. "You're selling what?" "Your apartment," Emily said, speaking slowly, like I was dense. "We've already found a buyer. They're offering $300,000, way above market value. It's a great deal." "You can't sell my apartment. I live there." "Dad, be reasonable." She crossed her arms. "You're living in a rent-controlled place in a building that's about to go condo. Do you know how much money you're sitting on? And you're just wasting it." "I'm not wasting anything. I'm living in my home." Blake jumped in, his voice smooth. "We've already looked into some excellent assisted living facilities. Very affordable. You'd have your own room, meals included, activities." I'm 57 years old. My voice came out harder than I intended. "I don't need assisted living." "Dad, don't make a scene." Emily's face had gone red. Around us, other guests were starting to notice, her future in-laws, her friends, all of them watching this shabby middle-aged man arguing with his beautiful daughter on her wedding day. "Give us the keys." She held out her hand. "No." Her face transformed. Something ugly flickered behind her eyes. "Fine, then maybe you should just leave." "Emily, get out and don't come back. You're ruining everything." The entire venue went silent, 100 people staring at us, at me. The father, who couldn't even dress properly for his daughter's wedding. The father who was so unreasonable he wouldn't hand over the keys to an apartment he was just selfishly hoarding anyway. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying since this morning, the one I'd had the lawyer prepare last week when Emily first mentioned she'd found a great investment opportunity and just needed me to sign a few papers. I smiled at her, really smiled. "Okay, then you won't need this." I tore the envelope open, right down the middle, then again, and again. The papers inside, 50 pages of legal documents, fell to the floor in pieces. Settlement papers, transfer papers, the papers that would have given her full control of Sarah's life insurance money, the $340,000 I'd kept in trust, planning to give to Emily on her wedding day. Emily's face went white. What did you just— You wanted me to leave. I'm leaving. I dropped my champagne glass on a table. It splattered, but I was already walking toward the exit. Dad! Dad! Wait! Her voice cracked. What was that? What did you destroy? I didn't answer, didn't turn around. Behind me, I heard Blake asking what was wrong, heard Emily starting to hyperventilate, heard her future mother-in-law demanding to know what was happening. I got in my car and drove away. It was the last time I'd see Emily for 6 months. And when I finally saw her again, she'd wish I'd stayed gone forever. The apartment felt different when I got back that night. Emptier, somehow, even though nothing had changed. Same worn couch Sarah and I had bought at a yard sale 20 years ago. Same coffee table with the water ring from where Emily had set down her juice box without a coaster when she was 7. Same framed photos on the wall. Emily's graduation, Emily's first day of school, Emily and Sarah at the beach. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in the dark. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I left the venue. 17 missed calls from Emily, 12 from Blake, 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it off and threw it in a drawer. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly, like water damage behind a wall. You don't notice it until the whole structure starts to rot. I'd known something was wrong for months. Small things. The way Emily stopped asking about my day. The way she'd started suggesting I downsize and simplify my life. The way she'd brought Blake to Thanksgiving last year and they'd spent the whole meal talking about real estate markets and investment portfolios while I carved the turkey. But I'd ignored it. Because she was my daughter. Because Sarah had died and left me alone, and Emily was all I had, and I was all she had, and that had to mean something. Apparently, it meant $300,000. I drank the whiskey and stared at Sarah's photo on the mantel, taken at Cape Cod, summer of 2018. She was laughing, her hair wild in the wind, sunglasses crooked on her nose. The cancer hadn't started yet. She was still healthy, still here. I screwed up, I told her picture. I should have seen it coming. The photo didn't answer. The apartment stayed silent. I thought about the envelope I'd torn up. The lawyer had spent 3 days putting those documents together. 3 days and $4,000 in fees. All of it meant to transfer Sarah's life insurance money to Emily the moment she got married, just like Sarah had wanted. Just like we'd planned together before the chemo took her voice and then her breath and then everything else. But that was before Emily had asked for my apartment keys, before she'd screamed at me in front of everyone who mattered to her, before I'd realized that my daughter didn't see me as her father anymore. She saw me as an asset to be liquidated. I finished the whiskey and poured another. Around midnight, someone knocked on my door. I didn't answer. They knocked again, harder. A man's voice called out, "Mr. Patterson, it's Blake. We need to talk." I stayed quiet. "I know you're in there. Your car's in the lot. Please, just open the door." More knocking. It went on for 5 minutes before he finally gave up and left. I fell asleep on the couch around 3 in the morning, still wearing my jacket. The one Sarah had bought me. The one Emily thought wasn't good enough for her wedding. The next morning, I went to work like normal. Frank, the store manager, asked how the wedding went. I told him it was fine. Beautiful venue, beautiful bride. Everything you'd want in a wedding. He knew I was lying, but didn't push it. Around 11, a woman I'd never seen before walked into the store. Mid-30s, expensive suit, heels that clicked on the linoleum like a countdown timer. She walked straight to the counter where I was helping a customer pick out paint samples. "Mr. James Patterson?" "That's me." She handed me an envelope. "You've been served." Then she walked out. The customer stared at me. I stared at the envelope. Frank came over from the register. "What is it?" I opened it. The words swam on the page. Lawsuit. Breach of verbal contract. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, pain, and suffering. Seeking damages in the amount of $340,000 plus attorney fees. Emily was suing me. Jesus Christ, Frank muttered, reading over my shoulder. I folded the papers and put them back in the envelope. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Can she do that? The customer asked. She was in her 60s, wearing a gardening apron. Can a daughter sue her own father? Anyone can sue anyone, I said. Whether they'll win is another question. I finished helping her pick out paint, eggshell white, 2 gallons, and then asked Frank if I could take my lunch break early. He nodded. I drove to Martin Keller's office. Martin had been Sarah's lawyer, handled her will and estate planning. Small practice, 3 blocks from the courthouse, nothing fancy. He looked surprised when I walked in without an appointment. James, I heard about the wedding. Word traveled fast in a small town. Are you all right? I've been better. I handed him the lawsuit. Can you handle this? He read through it, his expression getting darker with each page. This is ambitious. They're claiming you promised them the insurance money and then reneged out of spite. I never promised them anything. The money was meant for Emily when she got married, yes, but there were conditions. Verbal conditions, but conditions. Such as not trying to steal my apartment out from under me. Martin leaned back in his chair. Tell me everything. So I did. The whole story. Emily's request for the keys, Blake's suggestion about assisted living facilities, the screaming, the torn envelope, all of it. When I finished, Martin was quiet for a long moment. They don't have a case, he finally said. Verbal promises about inheritance aren't legally binding, especially when the money was held in trust and you're the trustee. You have full discretion over disbursement. So, I can win this? You can, but it'll cost you. Discovery, depositions, court fees could easily run $20,000. I nodded slowly. Do it. James, are you sure? This is your daughter. Maybe you should try to do it. He studied my face. Whatever he saw there made him stop arguing. All right, I'll file a response. But think about what you're doing here. Once you go to war with family, it's hard to come back from that. She started the war, I said. I'm just deciding not to surrender. The lawsuit changed everything. Emily and Blake's lawyer, some hotshot from the city named Richard Vaughn, filed motion after motion. They wanted access to all my financial records. They wanted depositions from everyone who'd attended the wedding. They wanted Sarah's medical records, her will, her emails from the last year of her life. Martin fought back on every front. The judge, a woman named Susan Torres, who'd been on the bench for 20 years, looked increasingly annoyed with Vaughn's tactics. By the third hearing, she was denying most of his requests. But the damage was spreading. Emily had posted on social media about how her father had betrayed her on her wedding day, how he'd destroyed her gift out of spite, how he was refusing to honor her mother's wishes. The post went viral. Local news picked it up. Suddenly, I was the villain in a feel-good story about a daughter trying to honor her late mother's memory while her cruel father withheld money that was rightfully hers. My phone number got leaked. Strangers called me a monster. The hardware store started getting negative reviews online from people who'd never shopped there. Frank called me into his office. I'm not firing you, he said before I could speak, but corporate's breathing down my neck. They want this to go away. It will, eventually. When? I didn't have an answer. That night, sitting in my apartment, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I went through Sarah's things. Her clothes were still in the closet, her books on the shelf, her favorite mug in the kitchen cabinet. I'd kept everything exactly as she'd left it, like a museum to a life that was over. I found what I was looking for in her desk drawer, a leather journal she'd kept during the last months of her illness. I'd never read it before. It felt too private, too much like grave robbing. But tonight, I needed to hear her voice. The first entries were medical notes, medication schedules, symptoms, pain levels. Then, about halfway through, the tone changed. James doesn't know how worried I am about Emily, she'd written. She called today asking about my life insurance again. Said she and Blake are looking at houses and need to know what kind of down payment they can expect. I told her the money was for her future, but that James would decide when the time was right. She got angry, said I was treating her like a child. She's 32 years old, and I'm still making her beg for what's hers. I felt sick. James is too trusting, another entry read. He thinks if he just loves her enough, she'll remember who she used to be. But I see the way she looks at him now, like he's an inconvenience, like he's something to be managed. I'm scared of what will happen after I'm gone. I'm scared he'll give her everything just to keep her close, and she'll take it and disappear anyway. My hands were shaking. The final entry was dated 2 weeks before Sarah died. I changed the trust documents today. James doesn't know. I made him the sole trustee with full discretion over disbursement. I know he'll want to give Emily everything the moment I'm gone. But I need him to wait. I need him to make sure she still sees him as her father, and not just as an ATM. If she loves him, really loves him, she'll wait. She'll understand. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't deserve it. Please, James. Please be strong enough to see what I'm seeing. Please don't let her use you. I love you both so much. I closed the journal. Outside, it had started raining. I watched the water stream down the window and understood, finally, what Sarah had been trying to tell me. She'd known. She'd known what Emily was becoming, and she'd tried to protect me. I picked up my phone and called Martin. I want to file a countersuit, I said. On what grounds? Fraud, undue influence, intentional infliction of emotional distress. I was using their own language now. Emily and Blake attempted to coerce me into signing over my apartment. When I refused, they retaliated by suing me and launching a smear campaign. I want damages. I want court costs. And I want it on record that they tried to steal from me. Martin was quiet. That's going to make this uglier. It's already ugly. Might as well be honest about it. Give me a week. I'll draft the paperwork. I hung up and went back to Sarah's journal, read every entry, front to back, looking for answers, looking for permission to do what I was about to do. I found both. The countersuit hit like a bomb. Vaughn called Martin screaming about bad faith negotiations. Emily called me for the first time in 2 months, crying, saying I was destroying her life. Blake sent me an email calling me a bitter old man who couldn't handle being irrelevant. I deleted the email and blocked his address. Judge Torres scheduled a joint hearing. Both cases would be heard together, she said. She wanted this resolved before it turned into a circus. Too late for that. The hearing was set for early November. That gave us 6 weeks to prepare. Martin deposed Emily first. I watched on video feed from his office. She looked different, thinner, harder. Her hair was pulled back tight, and she wore a severe black suit that made her look older than 32. Vaughn walked her through her side of the story, how I'd promised her the insurance money, how I'd agreed to give her the apartment keys so she could sell it and use the proceeds for a down payment on a house, how I'd destroyed the gift and publicly humiliated her on her wedding day. She cried during parts of it. Real tears. I wondered if she'd practiced. Then it was Martin's turn. Ms. Thompson, when did your father first promise you the insurance money? I don't remember the exact date. It was after Mom died. Approximately when after she died? A few months, maybe 6. And this promise was made in person? Yes. Where? She hesitated. At his apartment. And what were his exact words? I don't remember his exact words, but he said the money was mine when I got married. Did he put this in writing? No. Did he ever specify an amount? Not exactly. Did he ever specify conditions under which he might not give you the money? Her lawyer objected. Martin rephrased. Did your father ever tell you that his decision to give you the money was contingent on anything? No. Martin pulled out Sarah's journal. I'd like to enter this as evidence. This is your mother's journal from the last months of her life. Vaughn objected. The judge overruled him. Martin read several passages aloud, including the one about Emily repeatedly calling to ask about the insurance money, including the one about Sarah worrying that Emily saw her father as an ATM, including the final entry where Sarah made me sole trustee specifically to protect me from being used. Emily's face went pale. Your mother was worried about you, Martin said gently. She was worried that you'd stopped seeing your father as a person and started seeing him as a source of money. Did she ever express those concerns to you? No. Never? Not once? We talked about money sometimes, but she never said she was worried. Did you call her multiple times asking about the life insurance? I wanted to know what to expect, for planning purposes. For a house down payment. Yes. Vaughn jumped up. Objection. Badgering. Sustained, Torres said, but her expression said she'd already formed an opinion. Martin continued. Let's talk about the apartment. When did you first ask your father for the keys? At my wedding. That was the first time? Emily shifted. We'd discussed it before. When? I don't remember exactly. A few weeks before. And what did your father say? He said he'd think about it. Did he ever agree to give you the keys? He said he would. When did he say that? Another pause. I'm not sure. You're not sure if he agreed, or you're not sure when he agreed? I'm not sure when. Ms. Thompson, did your father ever explicitly agree to give you his apartment keys? Silence. Ms. Thompson? He knew we needed the money. That's not what I asked. Did he explicitly agree? No. So when you asked him for the keys at your wedding, you were asking him for something he'd never agreed to give you? It wasn't like that. What was it like? It was his gift to me. It should have been his gift. Should have been, but he never said it was. No. Martin sat back. No further questions. The rest of Emily's deposition was more of the same. Vaughn tried to rehabilitate her testimony, but the damage was done. She'd admitted that I'd never promised her the apartment. She'd admitted that she'd had expectations but no actual agreements. When it was over, Martin turned to me. We're going to win this. I don't care about winning. It was true. Somewhere along the way, this had stopped being about the lawsuit. I just care about the truth being on record. The truth is, you're a father who tried to protect himself from being exploited by his daughter. The truth is, I should have seen it coming earlier. Martin closed his briefcase. The hearing's in 3 weeks. After that, you can move on with your life. But I knew that wasn't true. Some things you don't move on from. You just learn to carry them. Blake's deposition was different. He was smooth, prepared. Every answer carefully calibrated. Yes, they'd discussed the apartment. Yes, Emily had been upset when I refused. No, he hadn't personally been involved in asking for the keys. He was just supporting his wife. Martin let him talk. Let him paint himself as the reasonable one, the mediator, the good guy trying to keep peace between a difficult father and his ungrateful daughter. Then Martin dropped the hammer. Mr. Thompson, what do you do for a living? I'm an investment banker. With which firm? Sterling Kincaid. And in your professional capacity, have you ever advised clients on real estate investments? Yes, it's part of my job. Have you ever advised a client to pressure a family member into selling property against their will? Vaughn objected. Martin rephrased. Have you ever advised a client to acquire property from a family member who didn't want to sell? Every sale involves negotiation. That's not what I asked. Blake's jaw tightened. No, I haven't. But you advised your wife to ask her father for his apartment keys at her wedding, in front of guests, knowing he hadn't agreed to give up the apartment. I didn't advise that specifically. What did you advise? I suggested she be direct about what we needed. And what you needed was for a 57-year-old man to give up his rent-controlled apartment in a building about to go condo, worth potentially $300,000, so you and your wife could have a down payment on a house. When you put it like that, is there another way to put it? Blake didn't answer. Martin pulled out another document. This is an email you sent to Emily 6 months before the wedding. I'd like to enter it as evidence. Vaughn objected again. Torres allowed it. Martin read aloud. Emily, we need to move on your dad's apartment soon. The building's conversion timeline got accelerated. If we don't lock this down in the next few months, we'll miss the window. Push him harder. Use the wedding if you have to. He won't say no to his little girl on her big day. The courtroom was silent. Did you write this email, Mr. Thompson? Yes. So you did, in fact, advise your wife to use her wedding as leverage to pressure her father into giving up his apartment. I was trying to help her navigate a difficult situation. A difficult situation you created by encouraging her to pursue property that wasn't hers. It should have been hers. He was living in a valuable asset and refusing to monetize it. It was irresponsible. Irresponsible for a man to live in his own home. Irresponsible to hold on to something you don't need when family needs your help. Martin leaned forward. How much money do you make, Mr. Thompson? I don't see how that's relevant. Answer the question. Blake looked at Vaughn, who shook his head slightly. $350,000 a year. $350,000 annually. And your wife makes? About $120,000. So combined, you and Emily make nearly $500,000 a year. Yes. And you couldn't afford a down payment on a house without stealing your father-in-law's apartment. We weren't stealing anything. You were pressuring a working-class man to give up his home so you could upgrade from a rental to a purchase. Would you call that anything other than theft? Vaughn was on his feet. Objection. Argumentative and inflammatory. Torres sustained it, but everyone in the room had heard the question, and everyone knew the answer. My deposition was last. Vaughn went after me hard, painted me as vindictive, petty, manipulative, suggested I dangled the insurance money over Emily's head for years, using it as leverage to control her, implied I'd destroyed the documents out of spite because I couldn't stand to see her happy. I sat there and took it. When it was my turn to speak, Martin asked me one question. Why did you tear up the documents? I looked at Emily, sitting next to Blake at the other table. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Because my wife spent her last weeks on Earth worrying that our daughter only saw me as a source of money. And at that wedding, I realized Sarah had been right. Emily didn't want me there. She wanted my apartment. She wanted my money. She wanted me to disappear into some facility so she could liquidate my assets and move on with her life. Did you tear up the documents to hurt her? I tore them up because in that moment I understood that giving her that money wouldn't make her love me. It would just confirm that I was right to worry. Do you regret it? I thought about that. No, I regret that it came to this. I regret that my daughter became the kind of person who could scream at me in public for refusing to surrender my home, but I don't regret choosing myself over her greed. Vaughn tried to rip me apart on cross-examination, but there's only so much damage you can do to someone who's already lost everything that mattered. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Torres heard arguments from both sides. Vaughn painted me as a manipulative patriarch. Martin painted Emily and Blake as opportunistic vultures. Both sides presented evidence. Both sides called character witnesses. Frank testified that I was a good employee and a decent man. Emily's maid of honor testified that I'd always been distant and cold. Blake's brother testified that Emily had been devastated by my actions. Martin called Sarah's oncologist, who testified that Sarah had been very worried about her daughter's financial fixation in her final months. It all blurred together. When both sides rested, Torres took a 15-minute break. Then she came back and delivered her ruling. I've practiced law for 30 years, she said. And in that time, I've seen a lot of families destroy themselves over money. This case is one of the saddest examples of that phenomenon I've encountered. She looked at Emily. Miss Thompson, your mother loved you. That much is clear from her journal entries. But she was also worried about you. She was worried that you'd lost sight of what matters. And based on the evidence presented here, her worries were justified. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Torres turned to me. Mr. Patterson, you were under no legal obligation to give your daughter anything. The insurance money was held in trust with you as trustee. Your wife made you trustee specifically because she trusted your judgment. You exercised that judgment. Whether it was wise or kind is not for this court to decide. She picked up her gavel. I'm dismissing both suits with prejudice. Neither party has grounds for their claims. Mr. Patterson had full legal authority to withhold the trust money. Ms. Thompson and Mr. Thompson had no legal right to Mr. Patterson's apartment. The countersuit claims are similarly without merit, as Ms. Thompson's lawsuit, while misguided, did not rise to the level of fraud or intentional infliction of emotional distress. Bang. The gavel came down. This case is closed. I strongly suggest both parties move on with their lives and try to rebuild whatever family bonds remain. Court is adjourned. Emily caught up with me in the parking lot. Dad, wait. I stopped, turned around. She looked smaller somehow, younger. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to hold my hand crossing the street. Then Blake appeared behind her, and the illusion shattered. What do you want, Emily? I wanted to say, I'm sorry, for how things got out of control. Out of control. That's an interesting way to put it. I never meant for it to go this far. We really needed that money. The apartment would have changed everything for us. You make $500,000 a year. My voice was flat. You didn't need my apartment. You wanted it. Blake stepped forward. Sir, I think if we all just sat down... Don't. I held up a hand. Don't try to smooth this over. You sent emails telling my daughter to manipulate me at her own wedding. You saw me as an obstacle to your financial goals. You got exactly what you deserved today. We were trying to help you, Blake said. That apartment was too much for you to handle. The maintenance, the stairs. I'm 57, not 90. I don't need your help. I never did. Emily touched my arm. I pulled away. Dad, please, can we fix this? I looked at her, really looked at her, tried to find something of Sarah in her eyes. Some trace of the woman who'd written those journal entries begging me to see what was happening. You screamed at me to get out and never come back, I said quietly. You sued me for $300,000. You told the world I was a monster. And now that you've lost, now that there's nothing more to take from me, you want to fix it. That's not fair, isn't it? I pulled out my keys. Sarah knew. She knew what you'd become. That's why she made me trustee. That's why she wrote those journal entries. She was trying to warn me. Mom would want us to reconcile. Your mom wanted you to see me as your father instead of as a bank account. You couldn't do that. So no, Emily, we can't fix this. I got in my car. Dad! She was crying now. Please, I'm sorry, I'll do better. I started the engine. Blake pulled her back as I drove away. In the rearview mirror, I watched her collapse against him, sobbing. Part of me wanted to turn around, the part that remembered pushing her on swings and teaching her to ride a bike and staying up all night when she had the flu. But that girl was gone, had been gone for years. I'd just been too stubborn to see it. I drove home and never looked back. 6 months later, I sold the apartment, not to Emily and Blake, to a young couple with a newborn baby who reminded me of Sarah and me 30 years ago. They offered $290. I took it. I bought a small house 2 towns over, 3 bedrooms, nice yard, quiet street. Cost me $180. I put the rest in savings. Frank retired and recommended me for his position. Corporate agreed. I became store manager, got a raise, benefits. a future that looked different than I'd planned, but solid enough. Emily sent me a letter in March, 6 pages, handwritten, apologizing, explaining, begging for another chance. She'd started therapy, she said. She was working on herself. Blake had agreed to couples counseling. They were trying to understand where things went wrong. I read the letter once and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd answer it. Maybe someday I'd be ready to hear her excuses and apologies. Maybe someday I'd want to rebuild something from the wreckage. But not today. Today, I was having lunch with Frank at the diner on Main Street, talking about fishing and baseball and the new inventory system at the store. Normal things, easy things. Things that didn't require me to excavate old wounds or forgive unforgivable betrayals. "You doing all right?" Frank asked, cutting into his meatloaf. "You've seemed lighter lately." "I feel lighter." "Emily still trying to reach out?" "Now and then." "You ever gonna respond?" I thought about it. About Sarah's journal entries and Emily's courtroom tears and Blake's calculating eyes. About the wedding venue and the torn envelope and the moment I realized my daughter had stopped seeing me as human. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe, but it doesn't keep me up at night anymore. And that's something." Frank nodded. "That's everything." We finished lunch and went back to work. I spent the afternoon helping customers, reorganizing the paint section, reviewing vendor contracts. Small tasks, manageable tasks, tasks that had nothing to do with family or betrayal or love, turned toxic. When I got home that night, I sat in my new living room, still mostly empty, still waiting for me to make it mine, and thought about Sarah, about what she'd tried to tell me in those journal entries, about how she'd protected me even after she was gone. "I finally get it," I told her picture, now hanging on the new wall. "You weren't trying to punish Emily. You were trying to save me." The picture didn't answer, but I felt something settle inside me anyway, some peace clicking into place. I'd spent months angry, hurt, betrayed, trying to understand how my daughter could become someone I didn't recognize, trying to figure out where I'd failed as a father. But maybe I hadn't failed. Maybe I'd done exactly what Sarah had trusted me to do. Maybe I'd finally been strong enough to see the truth and act on it, even when it hurt. Even when it cost me everything. The phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Emily's number. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever she had to say could wait. Or maybe it couldn't. Either way, I wasn't ready. I made dinner. Chicken and rice, nothing fancy. Ate it while watching the news. Cleaned up. Read for a while. Went to bed at 10. A normal evening. A quiet evening. The kind of evening I'd spent years taking for granted, back when I'd thought family meant something unbreakable. I knew better now. The summer came and went. The store did well. I hired 2 new kids for the busy season, trained them myself. Good kids. Hard workers. They reminded me that not everyone was looking for an angle. In August, Martin called. "Emily's filed for bankruptcy." I set down my coffee. "What?" She and Blake. Chapter 7. They're liquidating everything. "How is that possible? They made. Blake got fired. Some scandal at work. Insider trading investigation. He's not being charged, but Sterling Kincaid let him go. Emily lost her consulting contract around the same time. Turns out she'd been using company resources for personal business. They caught her." I sat down heavily. Jesus. "They're losing the house, the cars, everything. They're moving into her mother-in-law's basement." I should have felt something. Vindication, maybe. Or pity. But all I felt was tired. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's going to ask you for help. I wanted you to be prepared." "I'm not giving her money." "I know, but she's still your daughter, and she's about to hit rock bottom. I thought you should know." After he hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about karma and consequences, and whether I had any responsibility for the mess Emily had made of her life. I decided I didn't. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine. We'd both have to live with them. She showed up at the store in September. I was in the back office doing inventory when one of the kids came to get me. Some lady asking for you. Says it's important. I knew before I got to the front who it would be. Emily looked terrible. Thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail. Nothing like the polished woman who'd sued me 9 months ago. Dad. Emily. We stood there in the aisle between power tools and plumbing supplies. Customers browsing around us, oblivious to the wreckage between us. Can we talk? We're talking. Somewhere private? I led her to the break room, closed the door, waited. I'm sure you heard. Her voice was small. About everything. Martin told me. We lost everything. The house, the cars, Blake's job, my contract, everything we built. It's all gone. I'm sorry to hear that. She laughed bitterly. Are you? Really? I'm sorry you're suffering. I'm not sorry you faced consequences. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But Dad, I need help. We need help. Blake's mother is... She's not well. We can't stay there much longer, and I don't have anywhere else to go. You want money. I want a loan. Just enough to get us back on our feet. A few thousand to cover first month's rent and deposit somewhere. I'll pay you back, I swear. I looked at this woman who used to be my daughter. Tried to remember the last time we'd had a real conversation. The last time she'd asked me how I was doing instead of what I could give her. I couldn't remember. No. Dad, please. No, Emily. I'm not giving you money. I'm not loaning you money. I'm not helping you. But I'm your daughter. You were my daughter. Then you decided I was an ATM. Then you decided I was an obstacle. Then you decided I was the enemy. You don't get to decide I'm your father again just because you need something. She started crying. I know I was awful. I know I said terrible things, but I'm desperate. I have nowhere else to turn. You have Blake. Blake can't help. He's not handling this well. He's drinking. He's angry all the time. He blames me for pushing you away. He says, if I'd just been patient, if I'd just waited, you would have given us the money eventually and none of this would have happened. He's probably right. So you admit it. You would have helped us. I would have given you the insurance money on your wedding day if you hadn't asked for my apartment keys. If you hadn't screamed at me. If you hadn't sued me. Yes, I would have helped you, but you didn't let me. You tried to take instead of asking, and that changed everything. She wiped her eyes. Can't we just start over? Can't you forgive me? Maybe someday, but not today, and not because you need money. Then when? When will it be enough? How long do I have to suffer before you forgive me? I don't know, Emily. How long did you plan to leave me in that assisted living facility before you checked on me? How long were you going to let me rot there while you enjoyed my apartment and my money? She flinched. I never said assisted living. Blake said that. I would have found you a nice place. You would have warehoused me somewhere convenient and visited on holidays. Maybe, if you remembered. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Fair was you treating me like a father instead of an asset. Fair was you introducing Blake to me before you got engaged instead of after. Fair was you asking me if I was okay after your mother died instead of asking about the insurance payout. We left fair behind a long time ago. She stood up. Fine, I get it. You hate me. You want me to suffer. Congratulations. I'm suffering. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you, and I don't help people I don't trust. She walked to the door, then turned back. Mom would be ashamed of you. Your mom wrote in her journal that she was ashamed of you, that she was scared you'd stopped seeing me as human. She begged me to be strong enough to protect myself from you. So no, Emily, she wouldn't be ashamed of me, but she'd be heartbroken about you. Emily's face crumpled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then left without another word. I stood there in the break room for a long time, breathing, steadying myself. One of the kids knocked on the door. Boss? You okay? Yeah, I cleared my throat. Yeah, I'm fine. Just needed a minute. Was that really your daughter? Used to be. I went back to work. Winter came. The store got busy with people buying snow shovels and salt and space heaters. I worked long hours, came home exhausted, slept hard. It was a good rhythm, uncomplicated. Frank invited me to Christmas dinner with his family. I went. His grandkids were loud and messy and wonderful. His wife made too much food. We played board games and watched football, and nobody asked me for anything except to pass the potatoes. It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. On New Year's Eve, I sat in my house and thought about resolutions. Things I wanted to change, things I wanted to keep the same. I decided to keep things the same. Around 11, there was a knock on my door. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me look through the peephole. Blake stood on my porch, alone. I opened the door but left the chain on. What do you want? 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I studied him through the gap. He looked worse than Emily had. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, eyes bloodshot. The investment banker polish was gone. What was left looked human and broken. I took off the chain and let him in. He stood in my entryway, looking around at the modest furniture, the bare walls, the life I'd built without his wife's help. Nice place. It's fine. I wanted to apologize. The words came out rough. For everything, for the emails, for pushing Emily, for the lawsuit, all of it. Okay? I was wrong. About you, about the situation, about what mattered. I thought I was being smart, maximizing assets, playing the long game. I didn't see that I was destroying something that couldn't be rebuilt. You're right. You were destroying something that can't be rebuilt. He nodded. Emily thinks you might still change your mind. She thinks if she just apologizes enough, explains enough, suffers enough, you'll forgive her and help us. But you won't. Will you? No. Good. That surprised me. Good? She needs to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like objects and expect them to love you anyway. I tried to tell her that. She won't listen to me. Maybe she'll listen to reality. Why are you here, Blake? He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Emily wrote you another letter. I told her not to send it. Told her to leave you alone. We fought about it. I came to tell you. You won't be hearing from us again. I'm taking her to California. My brother has a place there. We're starting over. New city, new jobs, new life. Good luck with that. We don't deserve luck. We deserve exactly what we got. He set the envelope on my table. But Emily's still your daughter, and I thought you should know. She's pregnant. Everything stopped. What? 3 months. We found out in November. I wanted to tell you. She said no. Said you'd think we were using the baby to manipulate you. Maybe we would have been. I don't know anymore. But you should know. You're going to be a grandfather. He left before I could respond. I stood there holding the envelope, staring at it, not opening it. A baby. Emily was having a baby. I sat down, tried to process it, tried to figure out what I felt. Relief that they were leaving. Sadness that it came to this. Anger that she'd kept it from me. Fear that history would repeat itself, that this baby would grow up with a mother who saw people as resources, and underneath it all, a tiny flicker of something else, something I didn't want to name. I opened the envelope. The letter was shorter this time, 2 pages instead of 6. Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to help me. I don't even expect you to read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. Not because I need something from you. Not because I want you to change your mind, just because it's true. I was cruel. I was greedy. I was wrong. You deserved better. Mom deserved better. I failed both of you. I'm trying to be better. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I'm trying. We're moving to California. Fresh start. Blake has a lead on a job. I'm going to temp until I figure things out. We're having a baby in April. I wanted you to know. Not because I expect you to care, just because you should know. If you ever want to meet your grandchild, you know where to find us. If you don't, I understand. I love you. I'm sorry I forgot how to show it. Emily. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it in the drawer with the other one. Maybe someday I'd answer. Maybe someday I'd get on a plane and fly to California and meet this baby. Maybe someday I'd try to rebuild something from the ashes. But not today. Today, I had a life to live, a store to run, a future that belonged to me and nobody else. I poured myself a drink, turned on the TV, watched the ball drop in Times Square. At midnight, fireworks exploded across the screen, people cheering, couples kissing, a new year full of possibility. I raised my glass to Sarah's picture. I did what you asked, I told her. I protected myself. I saw the truth. I didn't let her use me. I hope that's what you wanted. The picture didn't answer, but somewhere deep inside, I felt at peace. I'd lost my daughter, but I'd kept myself. And in the end, that had to be enough. Spring came. The store launched a gardening promotion. We sold out of tomato plants and mulch in 3 weeks. I hired 2 more kids for the season. Business was good. In late April, a package arrived at the store. No return address. Postmarked from San Diego. Inside was a photo. A baby, red-faced and wrinkled and beautiful. On the back, in Emily's handwriting, your granddaughter. Born April 18th. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, healthy. Her name is Sarah. I stared at that photo for a long time. She'd named the baby after my wife, after her mother, the woman whose journal had exposed Emily's betrayal, the woman who'd tried to protect us both. I didn't know if it was manipulation or tribute, didn't know if Emily was trying to guilt me into reconciliation or genuinely honoring her mother's memory. Maybe it was both. I put the photo in my wallet, didn't frame it, didn't display it, just kept it there, a reminder of what I'd lost and what I'd chosen to lose. Frank noticed it one day when I was paying for lunch. That the grandbaby? Yeah. You gonna go see her? I don't know. Life's short, James. Grudges are long, just something to think about. I thought about it. Thought about tiny Sarah who'd never done anything wrong, who deserved a grandfather, who deserved family. But I also thought about Emily, about the wedding, about the lawsuit. Maybe when she's older, I told Frank, when she can understand, when I can explain why I wasn't there, when I can tell her about her grandmother and what she meant to me and why I had to choose myself. That's a lot of weight to put on a kid. It's a lot of weight to carry, but I'm carrying it, and I'm still standing. Frank nodded, didn't push, just changed the subject to baseball scores and inventory orders. 2 years passed, the store expanded. Corporate opened a second location and put me in charge of both. I hired an assistant manager, trained him the way Frank had trained me. The work kept me busy, kept me focused, kept me from thinking too much about what might have been. I dated someone for a while, Linda, a teacher at the high school. She was kind and funny and didn't ask about my family. It didn't work out, not because of her, because I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. That was okay. I'd learned to be okay with being alone. In August, another package arrived. More photos. Sarah at 1-year-old, Sarah at 18 months, Sarah at 2. Growing up without me, Emily didn't include letters, just the photos, just proof that she was keeping me informed, even though I'd never responded. I added them to my wallet. Sometimes I'd take them out and look at them, this little girl with Emily's eyes and Blake's nose and Sarah's smile, and I'd wonder if I was wrong, if I was being too hard, if I was punishing an innocent child for her mother's mistakes. Then I'd remember the wedding, the screaming, the lawsuit, the journal entries, the way Emily had looked at me like I was an obstacle to be removed, and I'd put the photos away and get back to work. Year 3. Sarah turned 3. This time there was a video, 30 seconds long. Sarah running through a park, laughing, blonde hair flying behind her. Emily's voice off camera. "Sarah, say hi to Grandpa." The little girl turning, waving, shouting, "Hi, Grandpa," in a high, sweet voice. Then the video ended. I watched it 5 times before I put my phone down. That night, I sat in my living room and thought about choices, about consequences, about whether the point I was making was worth what it was costing. I thought about Sarah, my wife, about what she'd want, about whether protecting myself meant abandoning my granddaughter. I thought about Emily, about whether she'd learned anything, about whether people could really change. I thought about myself, about the man I'd become in these 3 years. Harder, colder, more alone. And I realized something. I'd won. I'd protected myself. I'd maintained my boundaries. I'd refused to be manipulated or used. I'd done exactly what Sarah had asked me to do in her journal. But winning felt hollow. I picked up my phone, opened a new message, typed Emily's number. Then I sat there, cursor blinking, not sure what to say. Finally, I wrote, "She looks happy. Thank you for the photos." I sent it before I could change my mind. 3 dots appeared immediately, then a response. "She is happy. She asks about you sometimes. I tell her you live far away but you love her very much. Is that okay?" I stared at the message, at this small opening, this tiny crack in the wall I'd built. I could ignore it, maintain the boundary, keep my distance, or I could take 1 step forward, just one, and see what happened. I typed, "That's okay. Tell her I said happy birthday." "I will. Thank you, Dad." I didn't respond to that, didn't want to give false hope, didn't want to promise anything I couldn't deliver. But I kept the video, and when Frank asked how I was doing, I told him about it. "You thinking about visiting?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe. Someday." Someday's a dangerous word, usually means never. Maybe never is what I need. Maybe. But that little girl didn't do anything wrong. She's just a kid who wants to know her grandpa. I knew he was right, but knowing something and being able to act on it are different things. Year 4. Emily stopped sending photos. At first, I thought it was intentional, punishment for my half-hearted responses. But then Martin called with different news. Blake died. I gripped the phone. "What?" "Car accident 3 weeks ago. He was driving home from a job interview. Someone ran a red light. He died at the scene." My stomach dropped. "Is Emily?" "She's physically fine. Emotionally, I can't imagine. She's got a 4-year-old daughter and no income and no support system. I thought you should know." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. The man who'd sent those manipulative emails, who'd pushed Emily to ask for my apartment at her wedding, who'd stood by while she sued me. He was also the man who'd apologized, who'd admitted he was wrong, who'd taken Emily to California to start fresh. And now, he was gone. I thought about Emily, widowed at 36, alone with a 4-year-old in a city where she had no family, working some job that barely paid the bills, probably struggling, definitely scared. I thought about little Sarah, who'd just lost her father, who'd grow up without him, who'd have questions Emily couldn't answer. I thought about myself, about the grudge I'd been carrying for 4 years, about whether it was worth it anymore. I picked up my phone, found Emily's number, typed, "Martin told me about Blake. I'm sorry for your loss." This time, she didn't respond immediately. Hours passed. Then, late that night, "Thank you. I know you didn't like him, but he tried to be better. He really did." "I believe that. Sarah asks about you more now. She knows other kids have grandparents. She wants to know why hers doesn't visit." "What do you tell her?" "That you live far away, that you're busy, that you love her even though you can't be here. I don't know if that's true, but I don't know what else to say." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed, "It's true. I do love her." even though I've never met her. Would you like to? And there it was. The question I'd been avoiding for 4 years. The choice I'd refused to make. Meet my granddaughter. Let Emily back into my life. Risk being used again. Risk being hurt again. Risk everything I'd built in the safety of my solitude. Or stay here, stay safe, stay alone. And let Sarah grow up thinking her grandfather didn't care. I thought about my wife, about her journal entries, about what she'd written. She'd wanted me to protect myself, to see Emily's manipulation, to be strong, but she'd also wanted me to love our daughter, to hold on to hope, to believe people could change. Maybe both things could be true. I typed, "Yes, I would like to meet her." I flew to San Diego in October. The plane ticket cost $400. The hotel was another $300 for 2 nights. I told myself it was just a visit, just meeting Sarah, no promises, no commitments. Emily picked me up at the airport. She looked older, thinner, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. But when she saw me, she smiled. A real smile. "Hi, Dad." "Hi." We drove to her apartment in silence. It was in a cheaper part of town, 3rd floor walk-up, paint peeling on the exterior. Nothing like the house she and Blake had dreamed of buying with my apartment money. "It's not much," she said, unlocking the door, "but it's home." Inside was clean but spare. Secondhand furniture, toys in a basket by the TV, photos on the wall, Blake, Sarah as a baby, Emily's mother. And then Sarah came running out of the bedroom. She stopped when she saw me. Big eyes, blonde curls, Sarah's smile. "Is that Grandpa?" she whispered to Emily. "That's Grandpa." Sarah walked over slowly, studied me, then held up her arms. I picked her up. She was lighter than I expected. Warm, real. "Hi, Grandpa. I'm 4. "Hi, Sarah. I'm your grandpa." "I know. Mommy told me. Do you live far away?" "I do." "Why?" Emily started to intervene, but I shook my head. "Because your mommy and I had a fight a long time ago. Before you were born. And I was mad for a very long time. Too long." "Are you still mad?" I looked at Emily. She was crying quietly, trying not to let Sarah see. "No," I said. "I'm not mad anymore." "Good. Being mad is yucky." She wiggled down and grabbed my hand. "Want to see my room?" I let her pull me down the hall. Her room was tiny but cheerful. Princess bed sheets, drawings on the wall, a bookshelf with worn books. "Mommy reads to me every night." "Do you like stories?" "I do." "Me too. My favorite is about a caterpillar. Do you know that one? The Very Hungry Caterpillar." "Yes. How did you know?" "Your mommy loved that book when she was little. Her mother, your grandma Sarah, used to read it to her every night." Sarah's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? Tell me about Grandma Sarah." So I did. I told her about Sarah's laugh and her terrible cooking and how she could fix anything that broke. I told her about how she loved the ocean and hated spiders and always sang off-key. I told her about how much she would have loved her namesake. Sarah listened, transfixed, and when I was done, she climbed into my lap. I wish I could have met her. "Me too, sweetheart." We stayed like that for a while. This little girl who was a stranger and family all at once. This piece of Sarah and Emily and me mixed together into something new. Eventually, Emily called us for dinner. Mac and cheese from a box, apple slices, water to drink. We ate and talked about school and friends and Sarah's favorite color, purple. Normal things, easy things. After dinner, Sarah wanted me to read to her. I read The Very Hungry Caterpillar, doing all the voices, making her giggle. Then 2 more books. Then she fell asleep mid-sentence, curled up against my side. Emily carried her to bed. When she came back, we sat in the living room. The awkwardness returned. "Thank you for coming," she said finally. "Thank you for the invitation. I know this doesn't fix anything, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I'm different now. Losing Blake, struggling to make rent, raising Sarah alone, it changed me. I understand now what I was doing to you, what I took from you, and I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry. I know. Do you forgive me? I thought about that, about forgiveness and trust, and whether they were the same thing. I'm working on it, I said honestly. I'm here. That's a start. She nodded. A start is more than I deserve. Maybe, but it's what I can give right now. We talked until late, about Emily's job at a call center and her struggle to make ends meet, about the life she'd built from the ruins of her old one. I didn't offer money, didn't suggest she move closer, didn't make promises I couldn't keep. But when I left the next morning, I hugged Sarah goodbye, and I told Emily I'd come back. And I meant it. I visited 3 more times that year. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Sarah's 5th birthday in April. Each visit, Sarah opened up more. Started calling me Grandpa without hesitation. Started telling me about her day at school, her best friend Katie, the boy who pulled her hair at recess. Each visit, Emily and I rebuilt a little more. We didn't talk about the wedding, didn't rehash the lawsuit, didn't dwell on the past. We just existed in the present. 2 people trying to figure out how to be family again. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes the old anger flared up. Sometimes I saw her looking at my watch or my wallet and wondered if she was calculating. Sometimes she said something that reminded me of the old Emily, the one who'd screamed at me to leave her wedding. But then Sarah would laugh, or Emily would tell a story about Blake that made us both smile, or we'd sit together watching cartoons, and I'd remember why I was trying. In June, Emily lost her job. The call center outsourced her position. She called me crying, terrified she'd lose the apartment. I didn't send money, but I did call Martin. Asked him to look into job listings in my area. Asked him to find out what it would take for Emily to move back. A week later, Emily called. Dad, did you ask Martin to help me? I asked him to look into some options. Why? Because Sarah deserves to have family close by, and because you've earned the chance to start over. Again. She was quiet for a long time. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. What if I move back and we can't make it work? What if we just end up hurting each other again? Then at least we tried, and at least Sarah knows her grandpa. 2 months later, Emily and Sarah moved into a small house 10 minutes from mine. Martin had found Emily a position at a local nonprofit. It didn't pay much, but it was steady work with benefits. I co-signed the lease. We didn't live together, didn't see each other every day. But Sarah spent Saturdays with me. We'd go to the hardware store where she'd help me organize inventory and charm the customers. We'd get ice cream. We'd go to the park. We'd build the relationship I'd missed building with Emily. And slowly, carefully, Emily and I rebuilt, too. Not as parent and child. That was broken beyond repair. But as 2 adults who'd hurt each other and were trying to do better. It wasn't the family I'd imagined when Sarah was alive. It wasn't the happy ending I'd wanted when Emily was born. But it was real, and honest, and built on truth instead of obligation. And that made it worth fighting for. 5 years after the wedding, I stood in my backyard watching Sarah chase fireflies. She was 9 now, long-limbed and confident. She looked more like her grandmother every day. Same determination, same laugh that came from her whole body. Emily sat in a lawn chair beside me. She'd been promoted at the nonprofit, was making enough to stop living paycheck to paycheck, was talking about taking classes at community college, was building a life that belonged to her. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me. For coming to San Diego. For helping us move back. For giving me another chance. I watched Sarah catch a firefly in her cupped hands, then release it carefully. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for her, and for your mother. She would have wanted Sarah to know her family. But you still did it, even after everything I put you through. That means something. It did. I knew it did. But I also knew that forgiveness wasn't a switch you flipped. It was a process, a daily choice to move forward instead of staying mired in the past. Your mother wrote in her journal that she was afraid you'd stopped seeing me as human, I said. That you only saw me as a source of money. She was right. At the wedding, when you asked for those keys, when you screamed at me to leave, I wasn't your father anymore. I was just an obstacle. Emily flinched but didn't argue. But these last few years, I continued, you've let me be your father again, not the way I was before. Not the easy relationship we had when you were a kid, but something real, something built on honesty instead of expectation, and that's worth more to me than any apology. I destroyed us, she said softly. And you put us back together. That's not fair. Life's not fair. You know that now. The question isn't whether it's fair. The question is whether it's worth it, and she's worth it. I nodded toward Sarah. You're worth it. We're worth it. Emily wiped her eyes. I don't know if I'll ever stop feeling guilty. Good. Guilt keeps us honest. Just don't let it keep you from moving forward. Sarah ran over, breathless. Grandpa! I caught 7! That's my record! I scooped her up, even though she was getting too big for it. 7! That's incredible! Will you come to my birthday party next month? Mom says we can have it at the park. I'll be there. Promise? Promise. She hugged me tight, then wiggled down to chase more fireflies. Emily and I sat in comfortable silence, watching her play. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. In the distance, I could hear neighbors laughing, music playing, life happening all around us. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd just waited? Emily asked. If I hadn't asked for the keys, if I'd been patient? Every day. And I think everything happened the way it needed to. You needed to hit bottom. I needed to learn to stand up for myself. We needed to break so we could rebuild the right way. It's not the story I wanted, but it's the story we got. And I'm making peace with that. Are you happy? I thought about it. About my job and my house and my quiet life. About Saturday mornings with Sarah. About awkward dinners with Emily where we both tried too hard. About the photos of my wife on the mantle and the journal entries I still reread sometimes. I'm content, I said finally. And at my age, that's close enough. Emily smiled. Mom would be proud of you. Maybe, or maybe she'd be mad I waited so long to forgive you. No. She'd understand. She always understood. We sat there until the fireflies disappeared and Sarah came running back, tired and happy. We went inside. Emily made spaghetti. We ate together. Sarah told us about school. We laughed at her jokes. We cleaned up together. Normal, easy, family. Not the family I'd had, not the family I'd lost, but a family nonetheless. Scarred and careful and real. And when they left that night, when I stood on my porch watching them drive away, Sarah's hand waving from the back window, I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. Peace. Not because everything was fixed, not because the past was erased, but because I'd finally learned to carry it without letting it destroy me. I'd protected myself when I needed to. I'd held my boundaries when they tried to break them. I'd walked away from cruelty even when it came from someone I loved. And then, when the time was right, when real change had happened, I'd walked back. Not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to choose healing over hate. Sarah had been right in her journal. Emily had stopped seeing me as human, but through pain and distance and hard-won growth, she'd learned to see me again, and I'd learned to see her, not as the daughter I'd imagined, but as the woman she'd become, flawed and trying and worthy of a second chance. We'd both lost so much. The wedding, the money, the easy love we'd taken for granted. Years we could never get back, but we'd gain.